originally, like, not to get into like why we do music as humans, but I feel like it is a community thing in a lot of ways. Like, people like to sing along to songs together, people like to clap along to songs together, and you can't do that with noise music. You can't clap along to Pulse Demon. You can't clap along to somebody feeding a microphone back into itself.
I did take one music class as a freshman. It was a requirement. The teacher said something like, noise is unwanted sound. What makes it music is the fact that it is now wanted noise.
Noise music, to me, it's kind of like an antithesis to a lot of conventions within music. It exists as the very edge. And for some people, that edge is not an edge. You're just completely off the deep end. But for me, and I know a lot of people, it is the edge of what music is. You're still doing what a lot of people who are like composers are doing, which is you're arranging sound in a way that is intentional and has a purpose, but you're doing it in a way that sort of defies a lot of the conventions that allow for humans to relate to each other through music. Noise music is very oppositional and confrontational in a lot of ways, because when you play noise for somebody, they're like, why would I want to listen to this? Why is this happening right now? This is unpleasant, but it's unpleasant on purpose. So it's like, now it's art because somebody said so.
I don't think there is really a distinction between noise music and music in a more conventional sense. I think it's all music. It's just kind of how open-minded you are. Like, some people don't like the sound of violin. Some people don't like the sound of noise music. I just think people are closed-minded when they say that violin is music and not a noise generator. Because if you don't like it, doesn't mean it's not music.
Because noise doesn't always have to be loud either. Like, just like the quietest little beeps, you know, at like irregular intervals. It's almost like you're eating just the raw ingredients of something. Like, I think a noise track could also be as simple as like a rhythm that is investigated for long enough that it sort of loses its original identity. Because if anything, like, when I play noise music for people, it's always the question of like, is this even music? For some people, that's a question that's really frustrating, and for some people, it's a question that's very exciting.
A rhythm is, anything that has a defined beginning, middle, and end, I think.
I think I would define rhythm as being a pulse or a repeated pattern that specifically humans can kind of tune into. I think that rhythm is a phenomenon of sorts, almost a tool in which humans can sync up with each other. Rhythm is predictable in that we are able to grasp onto it and understand it, and a lot of that is the basis of how we all appreciate music. Noise doesn't necessarily have that. Like when I discuss noise with my friends or the people that I'm in a noise band with, it's the talk is more timbre based. It's more about, oh, I really liked when you went to this realm. I really liked when you made it feel like this here by accessing these sounds. And it's like you're kind of achieving the same experience of relating, but you kind of have to jump through a couple more hoops to get there.
I think rhythm is a pulse in sound that one is able to connect to. And that's I think the most difficult part of it to explain, how we're able to perceive it and connect to it. I can't tell you why when I hear a song with a discernible beat, why it makes me want to dance or bang my head or whatever. I can't explain that. There's just some sort of drive, a human desire to connect with rhythm. There's this thing, typically at live shows, where people will often bang their heads or sort of sway to noise music that doesn't have any discernible rhythm in a conventional sense. Clearly it does have some sort of discernible rhythm. But I can never explain it. It's amazing. I've seen it happen at Fetal Anomaly shows. When we're just, people will move to that. I think that, kind of relates to my inability to explain why it is that people move to rhythm, discernible rhythm in the first place.
But how does rhythm as a whole figure into noise? I feel like typically it's a bit outside of it.
I actually just saw Dialogue Talk perform last night. It was a fucking transcendental experience. He got really sort of harsh in a dance sense. The rhythm became so aggressive, he turned up the tempo to 300 beats per minute. The rhythm was so just absolutely visceral that it became like noise.
There was this band called Double Dragon that used to be around here, and the drummer for that band was incredibly technically proficient and would play just dizzying rudiments on the drums at hyper speed, while his friend would have a contact mic on his trumpet and do the noise thing where you make a lot of crazy sounds. There is rhythm there. It is utilizing rhythm, but it's not doing it in a way that is outstretching that hand to you, where it's like, boom, 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 we're dancing together. It doesn't have that same meeting you halfway thing. It's more like noise music with rhythm in it is equally as confrontational as the sounds that are being made in order for it to really match. It has to sort of stand in opposition in the same way.
White House, early 2000s, they had a sound. I guess it was very inspired by African, tribal rhythms. It's rhythmic, but not rhythmic in a sense that, you want to dance to it. I don't really know how to describe it. You can certainly hear it. on tracks like
Wriggle like an eel.
Wriggle like a fucking eel. Wriggle like an eel, okay?
There's a vocal performance that follows beats, and there's like a rhythmic pulse, and it's like, you know, there's like a thing that happens in the song that sort of has beats to it, and it feels like it's driving forward or following some kind of pattern.
compare that to someone like Vomir, which is a harsh noise wall project that's literally intended to just be like a single sound that's completely static for a long period of time. Something worth noting, though, is that people say that when they are listening to harsh noise wall artists like Vomir, sometimes they will discern some sort of rhythm or melody where there really is none. Some call them like, you know, auditory illusions. When noise artists are creating noise, they're often cognizant of rhythm of the sounds that they're making, even if it's not a danceable rhythm, even if the rhythm is so fast that it's not even perceived as a rhythm. Like take an oscillator, an audible waveform. If it's audible, it's obviously going to be really fast, and you wouldn't dance to the beat of a sine wave that's at like 1,000 hertz, you know?
Like a square wave at a low frequency is essentially a binary switch, right? It's like up and down. It goes above zero, it goes below zero, and it does it in a square. So it's like boom all the way up, boom all the way down. You can kind of blend the barriers between rhythm and harmony by doing that, because if you have like a pulse, like essentially what is a wave? An A is 440 cycles of pressure in the air. And so you can recreate that by having any kind of like low frequency oscillator that is mapped to the amplitude of any sound, and just have the rate increase where it's like it starts and it's like slow and it's like on, off, on, off, on, off. And then you just increase it until it's doing that 440 times. You're not going to hear 440 on-offs in a second. You're going to hear an A, you know? So like there's a weird blend there that you can kind of tap into.
There is a sort of a rhythm to sound just naturally inherent in the sound wave. And I think noise artists are typically cognizant of that and can tap into that subconscious rhythmic sense. For me, when I'm creating noise that is arrhythmic, there's always some sort of pulse. Yeah, there's an emotional pulse to the music that I'm creating. And I use that to inform my decisions. So if I'm thinking, okay, this is supposed to be like a high intensity part, I typically associate high intensity with faster. Not necessarily, but I have sort of this intensity idea, and I translate intensity into sort of a subconscious rhythm that I create with whatever I'm using to make noise, whether that's a synthesizer, a noise generator, or my speech, whatever.
You can see me! I am not feeling! You can hear me! My words are not filtered, diluted to the mind, comprehension. I am God! You can trace it.
Like when I hear free improvisation in noise music context, which is essentially like what I do, what Austin does. Devin is less improvised, but still improvises. I use rhythm a little bit. For a noise listener, deconstructing beat, meter, harmony, melody, timbre is much of the appeal of noise music.
Well, it makes it less precious, and I think that's important. Like, that's the deconstruction, is like letting people know, oh no, like you can take something apart and put it back together, and so it's not precious that it exists. And that can be liberating for people as musicians, to let them know they can do anything, but also as listeners to let them know that, like, oh, like, we can go on this journey, we can go to all these places, and ideally the lesson will expand outside of the context of music and make them feel this way about other things in their life, that they can deconstruct it and take it apart and all that, which is a lot of the function of noise music for me, is that it expands how people listen to stuff, what they're thinking about. The closest thing to noise is the fact that I started playing saxophone yesterday, so I am truly just content making noises and hearing the noises and appreciating the noises for what they are, because I have no control over what I'm doing, basically. It's like a childish thing, which is good. So I wouldn't say I listen to a lot of noise music, but I do play a lot of noise music. And I think it's good for you.
I was talking with Joe of Fugazi. He has this sort of like theory that our perception of time can be changed by listening to music.
Ocean sound has a clear rhythm of like tide in, tide out. Very clear natural rhythm, but it is also noise, and you can simulate that effect just by having a volume swell on like white noise. Like, just take a radio and turn the static up and down and it sounds like the ocean. It's kind of awesome. Like, if you go out into the deep wilderness, at 5 in the morning and all the birds and animals are waking up and there's just like a ton of noise, but it all like, it sounds, there's nothing unpleasant about it per se. There's nothing like unnatural or whatever. It's just like these bird songs, which are beautiful and musical, there's just like a ton of them. And so like in my mind, it's like, I think there's a lot to like look at as an individual, to like look at. Am I listening big enough to hear these rhythms? Like, is it noise or is it just me?
I don't think there's any type of music that's more enjoyable and personal to make than noise music.
The function of noise music for me, it's like the same feeling of gritting my teeth, or like being overwhelmed, or, being in pain. Which is kind of funny to say. But it is that for me. It's that feeling of taking something on as a challenge almost, and somehow coming to a conclusion about it. It's almost like I'm making my own code of listening with it. I'm asking myself questions when I listen to noise music. I'm exploring parts of myself by seeing how far I can take it, like in terms of understanding why someone would do something. Like how far will I go as a listener to want to relate to somebody? It's almost like a test of empathy in a way. I don't know, that's kind of stupid. When I'm sitting down and I'm listening to somebody throw contact mics in their tonsils and scream until they bleed, I have to wonder why. I have to wonder why. And then I'm forced to put myself in a position where I could possibly imagine doing that myself, or being in that position, or having something happen to me, or seeing something that could make me want to do that. And then it kind of like clicks for me. I don't know. I get it. I start to imagine a bigger picture of how this could happen or why this could happen. And it puts me in like a really dark place most of the time. Like, noise music isn't happy, you know? All right, that's all I got. Hope that helps.
Am I listening big enough to hear these rhythms, you know? Like, is it noise or is it just me?